Hi, and welcome to another episode of 50 Shades in Grey, where today I'm joined by two beautiful ladies from the Calm and Bright Sleep Support. It's Eve and Gemma, Squires. Hello, guys. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hi, we're very good, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining me on this evening. Like I said to you just now, it's so nice to hang out with people in the evening, actually, and have adult conversation. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So, guys,
really is lovely.
you deal with sleep with infants. You've helped over 20,000 families now with thousands of 5-star reviews. So you are the to-go-to people with children's sleep. And growing up, I wish I'd have known about this when I was a parent, because our son had colic for like 9 months, and we just thought it was normal that babies cry, never sleep, and you went round the bend basically for the first 9 months. So I wish I'd known about you guys then. So just a brief overview. Can you describe what you guys do?
Yeah, so we help babies and children sleep through the night from up to age 4, up to age 5 would be the last sort of age that we'd help with before. So just helping them to sleep the sleep they're capable of, supporting the parents as they make changes to behaviours and patterns that sometimes aren't working anymore for the child or for them. But I would say the biggest element of what we do is supporting parents through evidence-based practice. Like, we're a team of NHS midwives and nurses, and that's what we do. It's evidence-based, but it is a whole lot of love and support without any judgment or shame about broken sleep lasting a lot longer than some people think it does.
So what are the telltale signs, the effects of where someone would sort of start knowing that they would need your help, for instance? What's the first things that they would see or notice?
On the whole, parents reach out around the 6-month mark. There are some parents that reach out when the baby's really little, and we always, set that expectation that broken sleep is really normal in the early months and they're not doing anything wrong. It's just babies aren't biologically programmed to sleep through. So around the 6-month mark, if sleep is still broken and night wakes are still happening really often, that's usually when parents reach out. Mums reach out, dads reach out, just saying, just help. My baby's broken. We're like, no, they're not. They just don't know how to self-settle yet, which is really normal.
So at what age would you say that a child is expected, let's say, to sleep right the way through the night?
It's important. I'm really glad you used that word, Elliot, actually, because there's no shoulds. It's not they should be sleeping through by 6 months, but they are biologically, physically, emotionally able and capable of sleeping through from the 6 to 8 month mark. Some babies do it sooner. None of mine, I have to say.
No, neither did mine.
We've got 8 children between us as well. We've got 4 each. So we've had our fair share of doing the thing as well, walking the walk. But from the age of 6 to 8 months, every baby that isn't, of course, interrupted by something such as a physical or psychological blockage or obstacle is able to do 11 to 12 hours. So any broken sleep beyond the half-year mark really is something that doesn't have to be happening for the overwhelming majority of parents.
I've got to say, as sort of, I was saying to you guys just now, so I teach from kindergarten to year 6, and with the kindergartens coming in, and even sort of like the year 1s and the year 2s, I do notice that sleep has a massive effect on their behaviour, concentration within school. And it's a real big thing. And I think it is overlooked with kids, actually, because and I think I was guilty of this with my son, especially when you're a single parent. You kind of use them for your own company sometimes. So you'll keep them in bed with you, not necessarily for them, but more for your own comfort.
That's so true. I actually co-slept with my from like 4 to 9-year-old as my marriage was breaking down, my 21-year relationship, and that was 100% so that I had comfort looking back. And also it was a barrier. Like, if she was in my bed, he wasn't, and it was safer and better and happier. I mean, emotionally safer, by the way, just to be really clear. But we do use them to help us naturally, by the way. And I have a very good friend who is a prep school headmistress, or so it was for many years, and she said the difference between children who are rested and aren't impacts upon their how they separate from the parent at, drop off, and how they make friendships, how they learn, how fussy they are with food, how immune they are. It impacts everything. It's
so impactful.
Just as children, it's all the
That's
ages.
it. If you think how we feel when we've had a broken night's sleep, just one, how it impacts us, it impacts our children as well massively. It affects every fibre and function in our bodies.
Yeah.
So with both of you having 4 children, have you found there's been a big difference between how all of them were with sleep. So some would need a lot more, some would need less, or how they converted to going to the night. Is it completely different every single time, or is there a set formula with, by the time you've had your sort of second one, with the third one, you think, right, I've got it now, I know what to do, and I follow this, or is it?
I remember having my firstborn, and I'm a children's nurse, and Toby, my eldest, who's 13 now, slept really, really well. And I just thought it was because I was a nurse. I was like, yeah, there's no fuss, he's great. And then I had Louis, and I was literally stunned. I remember calling the hospital a week in and saying, he's not doing anything that he should be. He's not sleeping. He had really bad colic as well. And it was horrendous. And so then I realized, actually, it is, yes, there is a nurture element and you're doing the same thing and routine is important, but actually each baby is so different.
So how do you guys work when people come to see you? Will you then sort of do it over Zoom call? Will you go and visit them if you can, or will they come into you so you have to see the baby and how they are?
So we do everything remotely on purpose. So it started with me volunteering after I crashed my car with my 10-month-old baby in it, and realized, not major, but enough to be like, right, this isn't right. I'm feeding every 2 hours. She's got massive Michelin man rolled arms. She's obviously not hungry, so it's obviously comfort. And after that, I decided I couldn't do it any longer. I was dead against cry it out and control crying and all of that. I thought it was awful at the time, which is now what we do. We don't do cry it out, but we do sleep training, sleep teaching, as we like to call it. And that was the absolute cutoff point. So when I'd worked out a medium ground of being responsive and present emotionally and physically, but also not doing the thing that I was doing before, which for me was breastfeeding, she was sleeping 12 hours within 3 nights, and I voluntarily helped people in person for the first 5 years, which was amazing. But we then realized the massive irony in us losing sleep and staying up overnight, having known everything we know about sleep. It just felt completely wrong to endorse that. So, and we also then realized the power of the fact that if we go in and wave our wands and charge an inordinate amount, which we would have to do if we were coming away from our 4 children, in Gemma's case, husband, my case, partner, we realized that actually it's so much more enabling for parents if they are the ones that do the work. So we offer support remotely, which means we've helped in about 30 countries worldwide now with the 20,000 families. And so it's all in your hand, in your pocket. So you've got somebody on WhatsApp who's a nurse or a midwife or a health visitor who's talking you through your journey as you go, or you literally just get a plan and you just sort it out for the plan, which has every tool in it that you need to do, with one-to-one there if you need it. But it's all remote.
So, I mean, that's the great thing about being remote as well, isn't it? It's not just within your own district, county, country. You can now literally. So, where's the furthest place that you help to?
It's a really good question, and I'm really, really bad at geography, so don't judge me.
I'm
good. Great at Shakespeare, great at English, really bad at geography. I know that we have helped a family in Burma, with orphanages in Burma, Sri Lanka, Abu Dhabi, Australia, and where was the really random one? Goa on the southern.
Oh yeah, Goa.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, though, isn't it? That you can actually have an effect on people's lives through what you're doing. So how do they find out about you? Is it mostly through, because you guys are really active on your Instagram? I mean, I don't know how you get any sleep because you are constantly posting. I mean, I don't know how you do it.
I'm tired just thinking about it. I feel like it's dying a death for us, to be honest with you. We don't get seen when they're posting, so we're not getting found as much as we need to get found, and that's why we want to chat on podcasts, and why we want to do it, launching our own podcast soon, and why we do speaking events, and I write in the press sometimes and go on heart radio and stuff. So that people hear about us through a number of ways, but the biggest way that most people have found us is through the biggest podcast we ever did, which was with G Fletcher, called Happy Mum Happy Baby, which has a wonderful listenership. So that's the way that most people have heard of us, but we're hoping that we can expand the ways, because the problem is not what we do, but we do beautifully. We pour everything into it and care for every family as if they're our own, but the problem is people knowing about us. So that's actually a challenge for us, which we're working on all the time.
So I'm sure, like with the followers that we've got on 50 Shades in Grey, that a lot of them were thinking, okay, so but babies, but how does that affect us?
Of course.
And this was one of the things that we spoke about before, like, what is going to be relevant to the people that watch this and the people follow. But what you guys said that, I'd love you to talk about was the effects on a relationship, because like I said to you before, I've from a lot of the people that I've spoke to now that have single now or in relationships and had failed relationships, they said it was when we had kids. It was that time we had kids and we just lost each other. And when I said this to you, I mean, I'll let you guys sort of explain it, but you said this has got a real relevance to that.
Yeah, so Gemma is in an incredibly strong and happy marriage and married the absolute love of her life, and they have 4 beautiful children, and James is absolutely wonderful for her. That's not to say by any stretch that it hasn't. Of course, at times they've had things they've had to work through together and been through so much together, and they're an amazing team. I suffered with sleep deprivation worse than Gem for longer because I was the guinea pig, the older sister. I had my 4 kids first, and Gemma learned a lot from, one, the fact that she had a great sleeper at first, but she also watched what I did as well. And then she became a sleep consultant alongside a nurse and started working with me when I couldn't keep up with the demand anymore, 5 years into it as being a thing. But I had a 21-year relationship and we divorced. And whilst, of course, it's not one thing, sleep deprivation was absolutely a factor in resentment, in bitterness, in arguments, emotional volatility. And I believe firmly that it is a toxin that infiltrates every element of your physical and mental health and environment. And it's not even just your relationship with, for your listeners, their wives or partners, their children. If they're exhausted, they're going to be more snappy, less forgiving, possibly more critical and snappy, like we all are when we're tired. It played a part in the breakdown of my marriage without question. Sleep deprivation is a toxin, ultimately.
And I think when you're parenting and you're both exhausted, you are running on empty and you don't have any capacity to spend time together and put in the things that are so important to nurture any relationship. You just don't have anything left in the tank because you're so exhausted, and you're both doing that. So it feels like you're fighting fire a lot of the time.
And there's the competition as well, isn't there, Jem? So like let's be a bit stereotypical in terms of gender, and let's say that the guy has come home, and of course it can be the other way around from working all day, right? And let's say that the mum has been, labouring away with the baby and or the toddler, or even the older children, it can become a competition of who's more tired, who has a less thankful job, who is doing the most. And, because there's so much more currency. And this is one of the things that I never managed to get through in my marriage, which was that there is so much more currency than money. And as you were saying, Elliot, about earlier, that it's hard to measure the value of raising a good human. But we would argue, I think somebody did once look at the actual cost of, the cook, the chef, the psychologist, the taxi driver, and it's an amount that couldn't be covered with the salary that potentially your partner brings in. So it's a immeasurable, thankless, and very difficult task, whether you're a man or a woman or whatever else you identify as, raising a child. It's really, really, really hard. And the sleep deprivation is just a whole nother level that I believe degenerates and causes, breaking down of relationships.
Like I said to you, I did a podcast with my brother who's been a house husband, and he said exactly that. This is what you said. He said, there's no value to placed on what you do, and also the other person going out to work doesn't understand exactly what you do all day, and it's never ending. Once the kids go to school, it changes, and I know there's that perception of, well, it's okay for you because you're going to go to the gym, you're going to go do, then you're going to go for lunch and then do this. But while the kids are at school, you're then dropping off a PE bag that someone's forgot, and then you've got to get them from school, get them to football practice, get another one to dancing, and then tie that in, and then get home, and then ultimately try and sit and get them to do the homework that they never want to do because you've got to make a spaceship by sort of 7 o'clock the next morning out of a Weetabix box. So, and it's just exhausting. So in those, how hard is it then because I know what you said about, I don't know what the expression you used about sort of getting through the crying, because I don't think I could ever do that. Do parents find that part hard to do?
Really hard because it's so triggering. We're programmed as parents, mums and dads, to rush in to rescue. So it can be really triggering. Eve talks about this seatbelt analogy when we're doing teaching, because we're so afraid of tears and protest. But when you're strapping your baby into a car seat or your child into a car seat and they're crying, you're not going to not plug them in and drive around the motorway at 100 miles an hour because it's their safety. But sleep is a core fundamental human need. And we talk loads in our book and you know, whenever we do public speaking, about the fact that crying is a really natural response when you make changes to behaviors and patterns and things that you're doing that aren't wrong but aren't conducive to self-settling. With our approach, we don't do cry it out where you just leave your baby, so we're constantly responding and reassuring. We're in the room more than we're not in the room, so that helps parents to feel that they're being supportive. But it for some parents it is just too triggering, and it also depends on what your journey has looked like through having your baby, you know, any trauma that you've experienced. It all is so impactful. So we ask lots of questions when we're helping families about how they feel about protest in general.
And how do you balance out that sort of sometimes I know from speaking to mothers and fathers as well, that they're so tired themselves that it's like, I'm just going to, because I need to sleep. If I don't sleep, I can't do the job tomorrow.
Yeah.
So where's the cut off time where you go, you know, if you have got a stubborn baby that's going to sort of cry longer than you're going to wait up, it comes to that point of where do you go to them? Well, you know, there is a time when you just need your sleep. So for that night, taken to bed, or is it not like that?
Well, with sleep teaching, the way that we do it is it's very, very quick. So whilst parents can choose a slower route, which might take a few weeks, if they choose our sort of most popular, I think it's fair to say it's the most popular method, which is called the fast track, really looking at 3 to 5 days. So maybe a week. So if in that time you did go, do you know what, I'm just going to do it this once, it would prolong the results by potentially weeks. It confuses the child, it confuses you. So it really is a case of, if you're going to do it, you're doing it. That's the week that you're doing it. You're seeing it through, no matter how long it takes. Obviously not indefinitely, but to be honest, we don't get hours and hours of protest. That's not something that would happen. So we always prepare parents and say, you know, if you've got an older child, you know, you could have a couple of hours that are really, really tricky, but you're not going to do that ever again once you've had that first difficult time, where, by the way, you're always with them. You're constantly reassuring and connecting and comforting. You're just not doing the thing. Let's say they're demanding another bottle of milk, or, you know, they're saying that they can't sleep without you. You know, of course they can, they just don't believe they can. And the only way they're going to ever be able to believe they can do it themselves is if we show them and allow them to practice it with our comfort and support. So once you've decided that you want to do sleep teaching, you know, you would ideally not then switch it up. However, once you've done it, and a child gets ill or whatever, you get them into your bed and you do the easy thing for a bit, and then you just pull it back again when they're better. So it's not you're never going to have a contact sleep again, you're never going to co-sleep again, you're never going to have them fall asleep on you. You know, Gemma's 3-year-old fell asleep on her recently and she absolutely loved it. Yeah.
So do you think there are lots of sort of couples out there that are probably experiencing problems in their relationship that they won't recognise that the root of the problem is actually from sleep and from the kids being in the bed and becoming sort of like a wedge between the actual relationship, if you like?
Absolutely. You know, sleep deprivation is a form of torture. They use it in warfare to grind you down, to reduce you, to reveal information, because you've got nothing, you've got no fight left. And that absolutely, I mean, Jem will tell you, even in her really, really healthy marriage, they're not, people aren't nice when they're tired. And that's quite a euphemistic way of looking at it. It's hard.
Really, really hard.
So Gemma, so with your relationship, what would you say has sort of been the key success to it? If you're in a great relationship, which is great, having like 4 kids as well, what's been the key, what's been like the real key to sort of sustaining that?
I honestly think it's communication, which we didn't always get right. And we knew, you know, I remember having our son and just feeling so disconnected from James. And that was for about a year. And when I got pregnant again with Louis, I was really worried about that. I was like, I don't want to feel that disconnect again. So we just decided to just keep the communication open. And we came up with a score system, which I found out about on a podcast that I listened to years ago, where you've got a score. So you have a score out of 10. So James might come in from work and I'm like, I'm a 2, mate. Like, I seriously need a bit of help here. And he's like, I'm a 6. I'll help you here. What do you need? And it's just a really nice way to be able to vocalize where we're at and how we're feeling, regardless of, you know, one another, just being able to be considerate of each other and just to keep that communication going, which is so important. And knowing that it is going to be really crap for a bit, but it will be okay. We have a reason with knackered, you know, we've just had a baby, there are hormonal changes happening everywhere. It's a lot. but it'll be okay. I just think communication in any relationship, it's talking, isn't it? And because we can't, we're not psychic. I don't know how he's feeling. He doesn't know how I'm feeling unless I say. But the school system is a lovely way to do it, because you don't have to go into it. You can just be like, I'm a 2, I'm an 8.
What happened when he came in and you went, I'm a 2, and he went, well, I'm a 1, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly.
Where'd you go from then?
What happens then is a takeaway happens.
But Gemma, on a serious note, I do remember you saying that the most impactful, helpful, connecting question that James ever asked you when you had a baby was, what do you need right now? Like, just in this moment, you said, I want a cup of tea, a chamomile tea, and some chocolate, I think.
Yeah.
And it was so simple.
And a bath, yeah.
I think, to move a little bit further from that, the thing that I have a problem with, and I know Jem feels the same, is that after babies and in this stage, there's so much, which is wonderful, by the way, but support for and conversation around the mother. Like, you have a baby, everyone comes in, asks you how you are, you get your feet rubbed. Don't get me wrong, you've been through it physically, right? So absolutely that's necessary. But also, this man's just, lost his wife's body and mind for a few months. You're never going to have the same relationship ever again. Sex is going to change. All sorts of things are going to change and lessen. And, you kind of do lose your wife, just as she, by the way, loses a bit of herself when she becomes a mum. And I feel like we massively neglect the change and transition, how that impacts dads. I really feel like the focus is all on the parent, but actually it can feel, I understand from my conversations with my ex-husband, but it can feel incredibly, I don't know the word, but you lose your power when you can't help, especially if they breastfeed, they're the only person that can see to those child's needs. Are you even needed? Do you even bond with the child as much? So I think that it's really important for dads to know that that's incredibly normal. And oftentimes all it takes is for one man to be brave enough in that friendship group, in that chat, in that walk with your mate over a pint at a pub, is to say, it's really blinking hard, this thing, or I feel really distant from her, or something. Just one line, that's all you got to be brave enough to do. And then you'll get, I remember once my friend saying that her husband had said it and he was a real macho, sort of didn't talk about his feelings, and then literally all 6 of them were like, me too. And this is what I did, this helped. So just that one sentence, being brave enough to say I'm struggling, is really, there's so much strength. And
you just need a me too, don't you? You just need someone to say me too. Just those 2 words are huge.
Well, I think sort of traditionally, most guys, if they're open about their feelings, that their sort of mates will just tear them down about it anyway, and just say, dude, just get on with it. It's not that big a deal. Like you just got to cope with it. But the guys that normally say it's not that big a deal haven't done crap all. The whole time they've come in, had their dinner, put a telly on, and think, my wife's dealing with it, that's fine. What's the big deal about? Just get on with it.
Yeah.
But
the broken sleep, even after the kids are grown up, like, with your listenership, Elliot, it impacts, if they're getting broken sleep, nothing to do with children, but, it impacts their immunity, their fertility, hair loss, weight gain, muscle mass. You're so much more likely to have a car accident, 11.5 times more likely. 70% of workplace accidents are due to fatigue. Like, there is so much more to this than the child sleep thing. It's basically sleep. Shakespeare called it nature's soft nurse for good reason. There is nothing in our bodies or brains that doesn't need sleep to thrive, basically. So if you have listeners that aren't sleeping, and unfortunately we can't help anyone with sleep above the age of 5, so I always feel bad when people say, can you help me, and I say, no, I'm afraid I can't. It matters, it really matters, sleep.
Have you ever, I know you say that, but has it ever sort of worked with older people? Because I've heard a lot of people speaking lately about naps, about that, like older people taking more naps. When I say older, I don't mean sort of in their 50s and 60s, but I always remember coming home with my mum, and it was always that, you're asleep. No, I'm just resting my eyes. She always used to say that. But it does seem it was a few years ago, there was this big movement towards sort of a power sleep, wasn't there? So is that anything that can cross over to other people, like sort of older people as well, outside of infants?
Absolutely. Sleep begets sleep. Sleep is good for us. Some of the biggest companies in the world, such as Google, have places you can nap for productivity, for, you know, emotional connection, for, you know, comradeship and all of that, learning, development, creativity. So, you know, it's absolutely a thing. And I guess the one thing that's universal, no matter whether you're 1 or 100, is that how you sleep and how well you sleep impacts every element of your life. And so we absolutely must protect, you know, for men and women in their adulthood, you know, it really must be 7 hours minimum. Otherwise, you know, there was one study, I hate sharing, I reluctantly share scary facts because I don't ever want to scare anyone, but you know, there was one study that looked across 3 decades of 400,000 American men, and all the men that were sleeping between 3 and 5 hours a night, and I appreciate 3 is very, you know, extreme, but even 5 broken hours, they had a 50% increased chance of dying of prostate cancer. Like, it was an actual directly correlative impact of lack of sleep. And that's just one of many things, you know, cardiovascular and cancer and everything. It's really important that we sort it out, and that people get sleep, and men need sleep as much as everybody else. You know, we all need.
And
So-
prioritizing rest, you know, is so important. Like, I wrote a chapter in the book about adult sleep in regards to like routine, and, you know, not going on your phone for the last hour before bed and for the first hour in the morning. It changes everything. Like a lavender bath, reading a book, like there's so much you can do to improve your sleep, whatever age you are.
So culturally, is there a sort of big differences? Say, like with somewhere like a country like Spain, where like their culture is they'll go home and have a siesta for sort of 2-3 hours, and then they'll get up and go again. Is there any sort of data that shows that there's a big shift culturally when countries do that?
Yeah, there's absolutely lots of data that looks at that and how massively brilliant it is. And there's also really interesting statistics that Matthew Walker, the neuroscientist who authored the book Why We Sleep, which I couldn't recommend enough, about how every single year worldwide, so forget demographic or culture or class, but every single year where we lose just 1 hour on just one day, there is a distinctive, around the 20% mark, increase in cardiovascular events such as heart attack the next day worldwide. And when we gain an hour, there is, I believe it's about a 16% decrease in those activities from 1 more hour of sleep on one day. That just blows my mind, you know.
It's also positive because it means you can make such an impact if you improve your sleep. It's not too late. It's never too late to improve it.
Yeah, I think I found that, you know, I'm a lot better with 8 hours. If I can get 9 hours, it's great.
Same.
And so just to finish on, now with modern relationships now, obviously both parents normally are working, I would say, in a lot of relationships because of economical factors and, you know, getting more money into the household. And in that case, they tend to use nurseries. So in terms of that, how does that affect what you do, or does it help what you do, or does it disrupt what you do because it's no longer in the control of the parent? It sort of seems to be in the control of the nurseries.
Yeah, nurseries tend to have quite a rigid routine. So, you know, the babies tend to just nap and they get used to doing that. So that it can help, but it's obviously a big emotional change and transition. And I think sometimes sleep can regress for parents because we overcompensate. You know, we're like, oh, we haven't had them with us today, so you can sleep in my bed tonight. So it can do both. But on the whole, if you keep the same routine, you know, and your child goes to nursery frequently, it's all fine. But ultimately, the fundamentals of self-settling have to be in place for sleep to be good anyway.
So couples that have got sort of their babies in nursery and they think there's a problem with their sleep, they can still control that at their own, in their own time,
definitely.
at their own home.
Definitely, there's so much that can be done.
Hope. There's always hope, honestly.
Well, listen, guys, it fascinates me, sleep, as well, because, you know, as we know, with everything, from especially with exercise, it's just as important to rest as it is to actually the workout as well. I'm sure sort of the more that we can get our kids sleeping, like I said to you, I know with my son, he had colic, the same as what you said, and that was definitely a turning point in the relationship that I had with his mother then, because it was just so difficult because there's never ever any rest from it. So on that though, when do you know that it's a difference between the sleep and something more medical? Because we didn't know for ages that we had colic, because we just kept feeding and feeding and feeding. He'd cry thought he was hungry, so feed more, and it was just progressively worse. So when do you know that actually this is not sleep, that it's something more serious than that?
I always say like that you are the expert in your baby, and also it's so important to say that it's not actually normal for babies to scream day in and day out. If they're doing that, then fundamentally there is something wrong, and it's so important that you can advocate for yourself and say to your GP or say to the person that's, you know, checking in, actually, I really, you know, I don't think this is normal, because parents believe that the experts will tell them, and oh, I'm sure they're just crying because, but I always say, if in your gut you're like, there's something, actually, this is not just sleep deprivation, you're in pain or you're in discomfort, just to get them checked out. So yeah, we want to make sure that all babies are comfortable, otherwise sleep of course will be impacted.
Well, listen, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for coming. I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and I'll put all your details on here, and I'll get people to sort of look into what you do, and look up these guys and have a look. And especially if you've got infants and you're looking into sleep as well, that'd be great. But I just wanted to thank you guys so much for coming on to 50 Shades and Grey.
We're so
Yeah,
grateful. It's lovely to talk to men and to you, Elliot. We're really humbled. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
I appreciate it. Okay. Well, guys, thanks you for following 50 Shades and Grey. Make sure you subscribe below. I'll put all of the details on there from this podcast, and you can follow the guys and follow us, and take care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you. Take care. Bye.